Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Namaste. It is Tuesday morning, I believe. The days just seem to one fall into another, and yet here we find ourselves. And we begin with those words, I think the two most transformational words we could ever hear, which are, I am here. I am here right now in this moment. God is present through and as me in this moment. We spend so much of our time being not here or saying, I am not here. And the experience of being fully present here in this moment right now, that's the experience. We say this in so many different ways every day. We are here, but for the experience, to know, to feel, to have this rooted within us. And so we claim that today. I am here. If we can just begin from that place, from that presence, everything else just falls into place. So once again, I am here. Maybe we could all say that together. Ready? I am here. And so it is. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to begin with our little selection from the day from this piece that I'm writing on the universal light or the impersonal light. I always want to call it the universal light. Maybe that's the title is supposed to be. Who knows? We'll see. So I'm just going to invite you to take a nice deep breath and just to fall into this holy choice that we're making now to realize that I am here in this moment. You have chosen to believe that I drove you out of paradise. But all I am saying is that you never left. Powerful opening sentence. It starts with that story that we've been told that Adam and Eve were given this position in this paradise, this garden of plenty. And yet they chose against God. They did something they were told not to do. And so they were driven out. They were driven out of paradise. And this is what we've always wanted to believe. This is the story that we've always told ourselves. But what if that story was never true? What if God never drove us out of paradise at all? But once again, this is a story that we tell ourselves to justify the guilt that we feel, because we believe still that we did something that we were not supposed to do, not meant to do, that we went against the will of God. Once again, what if that was never true? And what if this story is just finally ready to end? And that's what we see happening. We've said before that when you've been sleeping too long, the dream becomes more and more chaotic, and it becomes harder and harder to stay asleep because the dream itself is conspiring to wake you up. When all these bizarre, crazy things start to happen because you've been sleeping 9, 10, 11 hours, it's just your body is saying, you don't need any more sleep. You need to wake up now. And that's all this is really saying. So once again, you have chosen to believe that I drove you out of paradise, but all I am saying is that you never left. The stories you tell yourself to justify your decision to deflect the responsibility for what never occurred seems without end. Your need to deflect responsibility for what never occurred seems to have no ending. And since the idea itself is limited, it must have an end. Anything that is limited must have an end. But since the idea itself is limited, it must have an end. What never happened cannot seem true forever. That's a powerful one. What never happened cannot seem true forever, because what exists forever is always true. What exists forever is always true. Your need to create a seeming reality to replace the one I am offering you proves that you cannot see what is always seen by me, at least not until you decide that seeing in this way is the only thing that you want. I'm going to unpack that one a little bit because that was a big sentence. Basically, your decision to not see is what makes it seem like you're seeing different than how you really are seeing. When you finally accept that it's the only thing that you want. And that's why over and over and over we say, there's only one desire. There's only one thing for you to be seeking. And when you seek that one thing only, everything else opens, because then you are able to see what has always been seen by God. Then your sight is aligned. There is a sacred alignment that takes place. Here is my main lesson for you to hear and finally accept. Here we go. What is not seen by me is not seen at all. What is not seen by me is not seen at all. So anything that you think that you see in limitation, in separation, is not real because it is not seen or seeable by God. Stop telling yourself stories that are only meant to scare you into believing that you have been forgotten and are alone. I could never forget you, since I could never forget myself, with capital letters, myself, which is forever yours, forever yourself. Just relax into this thought and you will finally understand that there is no way you can lose that which exists beyond loss. You can never lose that which exists beyond loss. Those are beautiful flowery words, but right behind them, there is an experience that you can choose right now. Once again, as I said, when you decide that there's only one thing that you want. But before that decision, there's another. There is the decision, the idea that initiates that single desire. And that decision is that the world I see holds nothing that I do want. The world that I see with my eyes or experience with my senses is never going to give me what I really want. I can try, and we have for decades, for centuries, for millennium. And yet here we are again, right back where we started, over and over and over again, trying to make the world outside of us give us what we really want. And yet we're always left dissatisfied because it can't, until you realize that what you really want, who you really are, has already been claimed, has never been lost. It's one with who you are. And then you look inward and you find that which is never lost. I like the story of the man who thought that he lost a precious jewel, a ring maybe, he lost it inside his house. But he's been spending all of his time searching for it in the yard outside. And he searches and searches and he looks for days and never finds it, until finally he gives up the search and he goes back inside and he sits down, plops down in his favorite chair, exhausted, and looks right next to him, and there it is. The point is, you thought you were lost, but you are found. You were never lost. You've always been right where you've always been. You have always been right where you have always been. And all you need to do is to relax into that. What was that one statement? Let me just read that one sentence one more time. He says, here is my main lesson for you to hear and finally accept. What is not seen by me is not seen at all. You could also say, what is not seen by all is not seen at all. Because that's all there is, and therefore all there is to see. It sounds like a play on words, and in a way it is, because they are still symbols of symbols, but they're symbols that are meant to break down symbols. They're symbols that are meant to finally decay that which you have held so dear, to keep you separate from what is truly held. And if we can just allow that to happen, allow it to fall apart, which is what we see all around us right now, it's falling apart. And many of us are looking at this falling apart and saying, let it fall. Why are we trying to prop up what does not need to be propped up at all? Let us fall back into the arms of grace itself, gracefully, joyfully, and allow a new state to emerge. So there you have it. Teddy, you are the proxy for Vicky today. Usually this is Vicky's moment to step forward, but since you're sitting there in her house, we're going to hand it over to you for a few minutes. What do you think?
Wow.
What inspires you there?
Well, the truth of the matter is everything you said is absolutely true. And it brought me back to the moment when I did go through my awakening and did see that there was only reality. And this is just an entire dream, a dream of my own making, and doesn't exist at all. One of the problems that we have is we have this dualistic thinking that produces opposition in our mind. So we think that for everything that is, there must be an opposite. And none of that is true at all. As a matter of fact, when Jesus came to me, I was sitting on a rock and I was like, I was done. I just didn't have any idea what to do at all about anything anymore. And he said to me, none of this is real. And it's as if he put his arm around my shoulder and we were one. And we disappeared into the heart of God, where there is nothing else. There is only reality. There is only love. And I could see that none of this, the world I see, has nothing to do with that reality. It was definitely of my own making. It did not exist. And at that moment, I was more screwed up than I was before. So when the course, a counselor handed me the course about 4 days later, and I opened it up and it said, how simple is salvation? You but do this to yourself. And I turned to the guy and I said, Jesus wrote this. He said, we've been studying it for 10 years. How do you know? I said, because he and I are the only two that I know this. And this is true. And I needed the course to explain to me why my mind thinks in opposition and why the opposition is not true in any regard. And it's not. Now, the other thing that I learned is because of the nature of reality being shared, whole, perfect, and all of us being joined in it, it's not something you can find out alone, which is also part of what, toward the end of the course, Jesus begins to sort of explain that you need the reflection. You need a reflection. You need someone in your life to be able to look at and do this with, because you can't find reality alone, because reality is not a condition of being alone. It's a condition of being one. And we are one, and this doesn't exist. And we get led along the way. Now, one of the things that I see, even with people who claim to know and teach the course, a lot of there's still a point at which they think that this has some reality. And it's impossible to eliminate that thinking unless the willingness to see as you were created to see enters your mind, and your desire turns solely to that, which means that when and this is sort of one of the confusing parts, I think, that people have a problem with this sort of idea of material, is they think because they still have to act and do things in the world, that doing that gives it a reality. But the nature of the unreality is so profound and so total that it doesn't matter what you do here. There's no way in the world you can make this illusion real. And that's an important thing to remember, because you will be worried about making it real or keeping it unreal, rather than just by applying the principles to your own thinking that would allow you to see that none of this is true. It is not your home. And in fact, you never ever left, because it's not possible to leave what you are and the only thing there is. And my learning has been, in a sense, at first dedicated mostly to utilizing the principles to apply to situations that seem quite mundane, but that necessitate the understanding that in reality, none of this is true, and still allow you to continue to operate here, not as if it is true, but as if it doesn't affect the truth of who you are, which is slightly different. And that's always been important to me. Acting as it with the understanding that nothing can affect my reality, no matter what I do or don't do here. And the understanding here that everything that I am given is to aid and abet me learning who I am, and not to avoid things. That's the big thing. You don't have to avoid anything, because the truth of the matter is there is nothing to avoid. And the idea that there is something to avoid is what activates the opposition or the dualistic thinking that we engage in this world. We don't need to do that. We feel we do, and all of our feelings are based on our thoughts. So none of our feelings are true until they're total, until they're whole, until there is only love, and the understanding comes that there is only love. Some of the interesting things is when you're thinking you're doing something that's not out of love, to step back and take like a little bit more of a longer view, to see that in the temporal sequence, the sequential time we think we're operating in, things happen in an order, but the order only exists within the sequence because all of it is going on right now. And we live out the sequence because the sequence is the sequence under which the events that allowed us to awakening occurs, not because the events are true and we're trying to eliminate them from our thinking. So it's always been, so what Jimmy just said is just incredibly important from the beginning, to just be willing to see that everything and nothing cannot coexist. And this literally is nothing. That doesn't mean we need to ignore it. It doesn't mean we need to do anything special. It just means that we need to live it, utilizing the principles to help us understand the meaninglessness of what we're doing, in spite of the meaning that it seems to have within the illusion of space and time, and the working out of that illusion in our own mind to the point where all is true and there is no longer an illusion. So to me, what Jimmy says, that's the crux of the biscuit. That understanding and utilizing it as the principle that we're striving to discover, because it is all true, has made a big difference and has helped me to understand what's going on here. It's interesting. It's not always easy, because some things go deep, deep, deep into us, and we really would like what we call love here to be true. But the love that we experience here is pale in comparison to the totality of love that is reality, and that we are in that reality as one. So it's an interesting, but it's an incredibly important sort of understanding, Jimmy. And I'm glad you started there, because that's where we start and that's where we finish.
Yeah. You said so many things there, Teddy, that really connected with me. And one thing right there at the end was that we basically would prefer in our need to separate from everything, we would prefer to claim a tiny piece of love, sometimes called the special relationship, instead of all of it, which is what we are. Instead, we say, well, I want this little piece. I want this piece to be my special little, area, my little enclosure, like my anchorite. It's almost like an anchorite cell. It's like, I'm going to live inside here. I'm not going to leave here, because if I do, I may be confronted with the fact that it's everywhere. And I don't need to limit it in any way. I don't have to choose one. I can choose all, and that one is still in the all.
Yep.
I'm not
Yes.
rejecting the one by choosing the all. It's
Nope.
all of it. I mean, that one thing is just like mind blowing when you think about it.
I mean, it really is. You know, I was shown lately, based on a relationship that I have, the nature of love as just being the totality of vibratory frequencies of energy that there is, as that make up reality. And when we look at it that way, we're going to feel like certain frequencies seem to be, in a sense, it help us experience love more readily. And it's mostly because if we looked at the totality of vibratory frequency that makes up reality, we do seem to have some that are closer to us in frequency and in vibration than others. But the totality of them is what makes up the single whole nature of that reality. So we do tend to have an affinity for someone who's closer to us. But the truth is, as we learn what love really is, that it expands rather than contracts, and doesn't exclude. It includes more and more in broader and broader scopes until you see that love is total. And, you know, being with one person, it's like one of the things that Jesus says is, you use a special relationship to make it unspecial. Like, use the special relationship because you have most invested in it, and use the principles within the special relationship. And it's not that you're going to lose the relationship, it's that you're going to lose the specialness, and the love that you are and the love that everyone is going to expand and become more and more inclusive. And in that, there is no loss, there is only gain. And love only grows. It does never ever shrink. It does never ever, stop extending. There's no limits on it because there's no limitation on us, as there's no limitation on God.
Yeah.
One of the most helpful things was when they showed me what I am as a soul. When I saw myself as soul and only soul, and saw that the only thing that exists in reality is soul, it became much easier because they sort of did it. There was this like wafer thin little cover over me that showed me that nothing ever can touch my soul. Not even my dream of there being opposition to it could touch it. So it's just a matter of unlearning. The learning that we do through principles, spiritual principles, is an unlearning of the falsity and a recognition of the reality. And the reality is there is only love, and we are that. Not as a body, the body doesn't exist, but as a reality, as a principality of a soul in reality, that's all there is. And we're learning to feel more and more that love. And as we do, in a sense, the physical becomes less important because our minds and hearts are sort of encroached and enveloped by love, which is what we are. It's a beautiful thing. It's
Yeah.
really a beautiful thing.
Thank you, Teddy. Thank you so much. That was really beautiful. It's focused. It's like every relationship, our mighty companions, even special relationships, become the lens through which we can focus on what is true. And if you have like a camera lens, you can turn that, and it can be out of focus, which is what this it usually is, or you turn it ever so slightly using the relationship, using the mighty companions. And this is why he said that you do this through each other. Of course, the miracle says you enter into heaven 2 by 2.
Yes.
And because we're all a lens through which we can focus onto what is real. So let's see if anybody else has anything that they would like to share. Let's begin first with the group here on Zoom. Anyone? Oh, I see Baraka's got his hand up. Go right ahead, Baraka.
Thank you, Jimmy, and good morning. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to.
We're just loving the background, by the way. You're so spatial.
That's the neighborhood right there, yes. I'd like to. I've been given a moment here that I'd like to share with everyone. And I'd like to start with just a deep breath, pulling in the knowledge that we have been experiencing here this morning, and exhale it as truth. Hold it there for just a second. Now, continue to breathe. But while you're doing that, hold in your mind, what is the one thing I could do right now to realize the awakening? Where I acknowledge the fact that all of us gathered here have been studying, experiencing this long enough to know what that might mean. So hold in your mind the one thing you could do right now to realize the awakening. Just take 10 seconds and hold that there. And now whatever it is that you think you are doing to realize the awakening, stop it.
Stop it. My two favorite words.
Stop doing that, because by thinking I have to do something here to realize the awakening, I'm actually activating the opposite of that.
Yeah.
I am pulling myself away from that by thinking that there's something I have to do here.
That was great, Baraka. I love how you did that, getting us to focus on it in a very sacred way, like as if this is such an important moment for us to step into, and then just stop it. We're right back to Bob Newhart.
You know, it's funny because he says it's not a doing, it's an undoing.
Yes.
And very few of us know how to undo. And the undo is based on stopping what we're doing and allowance for it to be undone for us, because we cannot undo what's never been done. And that's the nature that it always helps me say, you know, in dualistic thinking, neither side is true. Now we have love and hate, but the love that we experience here is not true because it's in relationship to hate. So we're afraid to not use the word love and have love be real, but neither side of the equation is true. And it has to be undone in us. And there's nothing we need. We need do nothing. We have to allow it to be undone by looking at the things like he's talking about right now, and being willing to let it be. And that cannot be done alone. That's done by one and all, as one, as all.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you, Baraka. Thank you, Teddy. Anybody else want to share anything here in the Zoom room? If you want, you can raise your hand, or you can just unmute yourself. Okay. Well, let's turn around to the other group then here, our Namaste family. Once again, it's like almost always immediately focused on Bethel, because she always takes the front row seat. Anything you want to share, Bethel?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So when Bracha said, what's the one thing, what came into my mind was trust. And that doesn't take any doing at all. All I need to do is trust that what I'm hearing today and every day is the truth. And quit questioning it. Stop questioning it. That's my big thing. I'll say, oh yeah, I believe that, and I'm going to do that, and every day I'll do this and I'll do this, and then I forget. But if I trust that everything is happening the way it's supposed to happen, and then I'm getting it the way I'm supposed to get it, then I don't have to do anything. I just have to trust.
I love that. Thank you, Beth. That's the little willingness. You just have to be willing to accept that this has already been accepted, and be willing to know that there is a knowing that has claimed you but which you haven't quite claimed yet. But it's already there. It's already claimed you, right? And now we just need to relax, and that's the undoing. But it starts with just a little willingness, a little bit of trust. That's, if there's, like you said, if there's anything we have to do, that's it. And that's it, the only thing. And as Baraka so beautifully said, if I try to do anything else, I'm just kind of coming right back to where I started, because it's an undoing, and I can't undo myself. I usually use the analogy of a dog. You've heard me say this before, a dog that's tied to a rope with the center post, and it's running around this post tied to the rope very, very fast. Because it's going so fast, it thinks it's going somewhere. Of course, I must be going somewhere. Look how fast I'm running. But as long as it's tied to the rope, it's not going anywhere. It's just going in a circle. But here's the other thing. The dog can't untie itself. What must it do for its master to come and untie it? What must it do? Stop, no, not bark, not bark. It has to stop running. If it's running in a circle, it can't be, the master, if you imagine, is just standing there like, I'll untie you, but you got to stop running first. You got to stop trying to do this on your own first, and then I'll untie you. And that's, I think, the summation of everything we've said here today. Stop running. Stop trying to do this. It's, just let me undo you. Anybody else want to share anything?
I have one more
Yes.
thing. I'm sorry, I have one more thing to share. And that is, some of you know the story, but a lot of you don't. So when I got the call to come here, and when I got here, Jimmy wasn't here.
I left.
He had left, but I knew I was supposed to be here. And so after a few months, I really began to feel, yes, this was the right decision. I'm supposed to be here. So one day I had a talk with Holy Spirit. And I said, Holy Spirit, I'm so glad that you brought me here, because I feel like I'm really growing. I'm getting closer to Source. I'm really getting it. And it's all because you brought me here. And Holy Spirit said, you can get that anywhere. You don't have to be here.
You can't get it only in Ahiti.
You can get it anywhere. I thought I had to come here to get it, but you can get it anywhere. Wherever you are in the world, you can get it. So I said to Holy Spirit, oh yeah, but I like it here. The Holy Spirit says, so stay.
It doesn't matter.
So, yeah. The interesting thing for me is there's not a different trust. It's not like two different trusts that we need to have. The same trust that we have in, like, our ability to wake up in the morning and it be daytime is the exact same trust that we use in order for us to fulfill our function and to awaken. Trust is trust. It's just the application of it that we need to, we use it differently. We already have trust. We've been using it all our lives. Now it's just the application on something that we didn't think we needed to apply it to, and the recognition that we've been living by trust every day of our lives and every decision that we make. We have no real idea what's going to happen, but we trust the outcome will aid and abet us in fulfilling our function. And that's all we really need to do. It's the same trust that we use every day in everything we do, is the same trust that we use to apply the principles to our life and our lifestyles in order to awaken. That's it. We don't need anything other than the trust. And out of that grows everything that we need, and the continual awakening occurs.
Wow, what more do we need than that, eh? I think that pretty much says it all. Just trust and surrender and allow. It's all we need to do.